All right, everyone, welcome to the fourth and final session of our self-care challenge. We are so excited to be focusing on emotional self-care and emotional well-being with Sheena tonight from Not Another Vet Nurse. So we are grateful that she's taking time out of her busy day to spend some time with us talking about emotional well-being for veterinary professionals. This comes at the perfect time because October is actually Emotional Wellness Month. So a lot of the things that we'll be talking about tonight will hopefully help benefit you as well in being able to implement some of these emotional self-care practices and prioritizing your emotional well-being. So let me go ahead and switch over here. We are going to be continuing to run the challenge through the week. So if you haven't done your self-care bingo card yet, you still have time to enter and win some of these fabulous prizes. Remember, you can always watch the replay and follow the call to action at the end of our session to be able to get some extra entries in. And in case you forgot what our bingo card looks like, here it is. There's so much good stuff on here. So make sure that you're playing along at home and tagging us in your shares so that way you can get your entries for the grand prize. There we go. Sheena, so excited to have you here with us tonight. Thank you. And for those who may not have had the chance to meet you yet, do you mind giving a brief introduction for yourself?
Sure. So my name is Sheena. I am the founder, creator, whatever, of Not Another Vet Nurse. And basically, it's exactly kind of how it sounds. We try to support veterinary professionals in their mental health and help educate on suicide prevention and awareness throughout veterinary medicine.
Awesome. So what does a typical day look like for you in your professional role through your job, but also through the Not Another Vet Nurse page?
So professionally, I guess we could start with that. Typical, I mean, I guess it could change every day, right? But typically, you know, we come in and we check in surgeries and we see rooms and do all that kind of stuff in the clinic that I work in. And then, you know, client education and taking care of patients and that kind of thing. And then of course, after that, I have the Not Another Vet Nurse is really taken up a good chunk of my life, which I love. I'm very thankful and grateful for that. But pretty much what that really entails for me is educating, sharing my own personal things that I've been through, things differently, or that I wish I would have had differently, and sharing with everyone else in veterinary medicine to hopefully prevent that from happening to someone else, which I know that we're not going to change. Everyone's path is going to be different. Yeah. But it is my goal to just help share those obstacles that I encountered on my path through veterinary medicine myself. And I help them just be more aware of how to take care of themselves, you know, the self-care thing as we're talking about. And that includes mentally, physically, emotionally, all those things. So really just trying to help spread awareness and educate. And so I do lots of posts and quotes and, you know, lives and all different kinds of things to kind of to just get the word out there. And yeah, and a lot of people, you know, I'm very blunt and say it like it is. Some people like it, some people don't. Unfortunately, that's just how it is. But yeah, that's kind of what it is. It just entails me posting every day and talking to people and being there for people and creating that safe space for people in our field.
Yeah, and I think something that's so important is, you know, really being able to focus on advocating and normalizing these conversations too, right? So I would love for you to share, what does emotional well-being mean to you?
Oh, I spent a lot of time trying to think about what it meant to me, and I keep going back to what you had originally asked me when you asked me the first time, and I continue to go back to it. It makes me think of, or it reminds me of protecting your emotional health. Um, and being in this field, it's very emotionally taxing. You know, we see a lot of bad things. I mean, we see really great things, but we do see a lot of bad things, you know. And I think all too often we feel like we have to do that euthanasia, get our stuff together, and then go into the next room and don't have time to kind of emotionally, mentally deal with that. And so I think, you know, trying to be able to protect ourselves, protect our emotional health, and also deal with our mental and emotional health. I know this isn't mental, um, but being able to show our emotions and not feel scared that somebody's going to judge us if we're sad about a euthanasia kind of thing. So just, I don't know, protecting it seems like something that continuously comes to my mind personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the mental and emotional do go hand in hand, right? I mean, they're so interconnected, and being able to try to allow yourself that space to even just recognize what emotions you're experiencing sometimes too, right? I think that's something that we're not really taught, is how to identify the specific emotions that we're experiencing. And sometimes we just, end up reacting and we don't know why until we can peg later, like, oh, I was experiencing some pretty heavy grief at that time.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
what, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. You just, like you said, grief. I totally understand how, like, you can have that happen where you snap and you're like, oh wait, I'm so sorry. So absolutely, it totally made me think of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is it for you that you found helpful when it comes to practicing self-care for emotional well-being? What does that tend to look like for you?
So now, I mean, when I think of self-care or emotional self-care, it's going to look different for everyone, right? Everybody's going to have their own type of self-care regimen that they do. And, you know, if you had asked me this 10 plus years ago, I would have never known, because I didn't even know what self-care was. So, but for me, emotional self-care personally, it makes me think of just anything that emotionally makes you feel good. So for me, and I don't know, there might be other people out there that hear it and they say the same thing. But there's certain like types of music that I like to listen to, and that can really, like, if I'm in a really bad mood, or you know, I'm not feeling like I'm in a good place, and I listen to a certain artist or a certain song, it makes me, it just
Yes.
can brighten up my whole day. And that may sound corny, but you know, like I said, it's going to be different for everyone, right? So, but for me, there's certain songs that I'll hear that just kind of like, just they hit the soul. They hit the soul different, and it just makes you feel good. And so, you know, anyone out there, if they have something that, if it's something like music, if it's something like smelling a flower, smelling a really good perfume, or just sitting out in the sun, whatever it is, it just kind of makes you, it just, has serotonin release, right? So anything, like whatever really just makes you feel just emotionally happy, right? Just makes you very happy. To me, I think that's very important, especially in our profession.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so valuable, because I think a lot of people sometimes forget to do those things that can help them shift out of those spaces. And obviously it's not going to be like a magical switch that just makes everything else go away, but it's that thing that kind of helps buffer the blow, right? So yeah, I mean, that's been a common theme throughout all of these sessions, is you got to find what works best for you. So I love that you shared about the music, because that's definitely one that I turn to quite a bit as well. So something that can probably benefit everyone that's tuning into this call is about setting boundaries. And I know that's something that you promote a lot through your social media pages, is trying to educate, how to set boundaries, what boundaries look like. So can you tell us a little bit more about how setting boundaries can support veterinary professionals' emotional well-being, and what can setting boundaries look or sound like?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of my other favorite words, boundaries. So for me, or for anyone out there, so boundaries, I mean, they're going to be those things that 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 you're not used to setting. So people in this field, we're used to saying yes, yes, yes. Yes, I can come in. Yes, I can do this overtime. Yes, I can stay late. Yes, I can come in early. You know what I'm saying? Like it's feeling guilty about saying no. And I think that's the biggest thing in this profession, just in general. There's tons of other ones out there, but I think that's the biggest one right now. Is learning to set those boundaries. And there's going to be, physical boundaries for like your body, listening to your body. There's going to be mental boundaries, making sure you're taking care of your mental health, and the emotional and all that. But the biggest thing is learning to say no, and learning that it's okay to say no. And that's one of the biggest boundaries that I always try to push. And that's going to help you, because you're trying to tell you're not only trying to tell them no, but you're trying to tell yourself no, right? So it's gonna suck at first. I'm gonna tell right up front, because we've never set any boundaries. None of us have set boundaries, and when I first started, it was awful. It feels awkward. But I promise that when you do, you're going to feel better. It's going to help you feel like you have some sort of take on your life back, or control on your life. And I think the other biggest thing is to make sure that when you set those boundaries, that you continue to uphold those boundaries. Because you can so easily say, well, I only want to work this many hours, but they say, well, can you work 3 extra hours? And you say yes, but you agreed to a certain number of hours, right? So you have to learn to uphold those boundaries, but not allow other people to violate them. And I think that's a very big challenge, in this field. Like I said, it's gonna suck. It's very weird at first. But I promise you, once you do, you're gonna find people that start, I don't know if they start respecting you more, but they start to realize, oh, I can't manipulate them anymore, right? And so, and it's one thing to say, to step outside those boundaries every once in a while, to do like, okay, well, I had to stay a little bit late today because of this very sick pet.
Sure.
But not making it a habit, because that's kind of where we fall into that hole. And so yeah, and that's just a couple of the no as the example, and I have a bunch of other ones out there that I try to share. But yeah, the boundaries, they're very important, in life in general, but definitely in this field. Definitely in this field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you share something so important, where you really do have to practice setting boundaries, because it is a skill that you have to build. It's again not something that we're taught. And so, like you said, trying to do them like the first few times is going to feel awkward. And then being able to stay committed to yourself and protect those boundaries, but having a little bit of that flexibility built in, like you said, right? You're not always going to be the person that's like the hard no. You're going to have to take into consideration what's going on in your life before you do say yes to something. And I forget where I've heard this before, but the phrase, when you say yes to something, think about what that means you're saying no to. Because that could be no to your own health and well-being. That could be no to you being able to have time for your mental or emotional wellness. And so I love how you kind of summarized it there to really emphasize that a way to prioritize your self-care in a way that's respected, but having to revisit it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, Sheena, I would love to know what would be some of the recommendations that you would give to veterinary professionals on ways they can promote their own emotional well-being?
So yes, ways to support your own emotional well-being. It's gonna go right back there to the boundary word, is setting those boundaries. But ways that you can support your own emotional well-being is going to be that self-care, right? Going into the self-care and make sure that you protect your emotional well-being, and that you make sure that you put yourself first, which is another very, very, very difficult thing for us to do in this field. But yeah, so putting yourself first, which is really going to be very difficult for anyone in any healthcare profession, because we are caregivers and we put our patients and everyone else first. So prioritizing yourself, prioritizing your mental health, obviously, setting those boundaries, the self-care, which we've already mentioned. But and I think another thing that I don't know that it's not really hasn't been said, but we obviously always advocate for it, is asking for help. So reaching out,
Mm-hmm.
if you are emotionally struggling or you need someone to talk to, therapy, or obviously reaching out to us, because we are an outlet for veterinary professionals. But we also try to advocate for destigmatizing, not sure if that's a word, but destigmatizing the stigma around mental health and therapy and all that. So reaching out and talking to someone sometimes can be very good for your emotional well-being. I know it has been for my own self. So yeah, I think it's again going to be very different for everyone. It's going to be whatever works best for you, and not caring about what anyone else has to say or what they're going to think, because I think we can be very critical on ourselves and critical about the people around us and our family and our friends and our coworkers and what they're going to think. And so just not worrying about any of that and putting yourself first and doing what's best for you in the end.
Love that so much. Yes. All the yes. Awesome. Well, Sheena, thank you so much for sharing this time with us tonight and being able to help us share with other veterinary professionals how they can focus on self-care for emotional well-being. For those of you who are tuning into the recording, don't forget that you can still earn your raffle points by sharing your favorite takeaway from this session in your Instagram stories and tagging us, myself at MBT lifestyle_veterinary, Hound at Hound, and we also have Sheena at another vet nurse with those underscores between each of the words. Awesome. Well, Sheena, do you have any closing words for those vet pros who are tuning into the session?
No, I mean, except, just continue to be the badass veterinary professionals that you are, and set those boundaries and put yourself first. Those are my key things.
Love that so much. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight and to share your words of wisdom. So y'all, thank you so much for tuning in for our self-care challenge. Don't forget, we've got 1 week left. So we will see you online. And until next time, everyone, take care, stay healthy, and be well. Thanks so much, Sheena.